What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Big Baby. What's poppin', everybody? It's Bigbabyjonathan here. Welcome to the latest edition of the Bigbabyjonathan Sports Podcast. I got a very special guest, Trevor Lane from LakersNation.com. How's it going, Trevor Lane? Thank you for coming on once again. How's it going, man?
No problem. Thanks for having me. Going good. Just getting excited, ready for the season to get started again, and see if they can go back to back here.
Yeah, man. Same here, man. But in today's show, we're going to talk about the Lakers free agency. Did they win free agency? And breaking news, Frank Vogel said AD and LeBron's not playing. So first, let's talk about the free agency. So, Trevor Lane, do you think the Lakers won free agency, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make a really strong argument that they ended up having the best offseason of any of the NBA teams out there, which is pretty ridiculous, right? I mean, coming off of an NBA championship, that's not the team that's supposed to have the best offseason out of anybody. And you look at landing a guy like a Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder, two guys who are in their 20s, fitting Anthony Davis's timeline, 26 and 27 years old, respectively. And these guys are not just a talent upgrade, but again, getting younger as well. That's also not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to be able to get a guy like Montrezl Harrell with the mid-level exception, but here we are. I think the Lakers had a heck of an offseason, and on paper, that's key, on paper, because who knows what it's going to look like when it's on the floor, but on paper, I do think they are even better this season, which is a scary thought.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. We got Montrezl Harrell, and everybody was talking about once Montrezl Harrell signed with Clutch Sports, everybody was talking about, he's going to go to the Lakers. I remember that when that news broke, he was signing with Clutch Sports. Everybody was talking about he's going to be a Laker. I personally was like, he ain't going to go to the Lakers. He'll re-sign with the Clippers. And he surprised me because I thought he was going to re-sign with the Clippers. He turned down more money from the Charlotte Hornets to try to compete for a championship, man. So that just shows you that he wants to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Harrell had an opportunity to get significantly more money in Charlotte, and he said, "No, I'd rather stay in LA, be a Laker." And of course, he can hit free agency again next offseason. It's a 1+1 deal with a player option after the first year, so that gives an opportunity to go hit free agency after this season. But the bottom line, the Lakers still got him on a very, very nice deal. And look, if things work out, maybe he's a guy that they hang on to long term and say, "Look, this is a guy that we can use around Anthony Davis into the future here."
Yeah, 100%, man. And I'm excited for Montrezl Harrell. He's an underrated passer because I was watching his highlights. Very underrated passer. Blocks shots really well. His energy on both ends of the floor is tremendous. He's going to bring that spark off the bench. Let's say we're down 8 against Utah. He can bring that spark off the bench, bring that toughness, the grit, grind, and all that good stuff, man. I'm excited for him, man. We got some questions for you, Trevor Lane. We got a question for you. Do you think the Lakers need a center or not? Heard Dwayne Dedmon, John Henderson. So what do you think about that?
Do they need another center? Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of a moot point because they can't really sign anybody else. They don't have another roster spot, at least for right now. For right now, because they are under a hard cap, they can't sign anybody else. They don't have enough room under the hard cap to add another veteran minimum salary. That will change during the season. There's going to be a point during the season where the veteran minimum will be prorated for the remainder of the season, and it'll get down to a low enough number to where they can add that 15th player. For right now, they're full. However, Quinn Cook, the report is that his deal is non-guaranteed. So in theory, if they look at everything in training camp and they just say, gosh, we need one more rim protector, maybe they could waive Quinn Cook, although they just brought him back after waiving him a few weeks ago. That would just be mean. So I get it. I understand the concerns. I've seen those questions a lot from Lakers fans that are a little bit confused as to why the Lakers don't have that true shot blocking center that we saw last season with both JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. I think Frank Vogel will have ways to scheme around it, and for right now, they're comfortable heading into the season as is. If it becomes a major detriment to their team, I trust Rob Pelinka to make the moves to land whoever they need to. But for right now, I'm going to believe that they've got the roster that they need to start the season.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And everybody's Legoat Sharp asked about the center. We got Devontae Kaycock and Giannis's brother. I forgot to pronounce his first name. But he could play, Kofi's. He could play center too, so wouldn't be surprised if Lakers throw him out there during preseason because Lakers have a lot of talent. They got Horton Tucker, Devontae Kaycock, Giannis's brother. I'm excited to see what Frank Vogel's going to do with these young guys because AD and LeBron ain't playing on Friday. Wouldn't be surprised if they set out all the rest of the preseason games and leading into the regular season. So how do you feel like these young guys like Devontae Kaycock, Horton Tucker are going to thrive under Frank Vogel this season?
I mean, Devontae Kaycock showed out very, very well in the G League last season. He was first team all G League. So this is a guy that could come help you on the boards.
Hmm.
Not a traditional shot blocker like a JaVale or Dwight. So you're not really fitting that skill set there, but he can protect the rim a little bit. He's just not a guy who's going to go out and block 2+ shots a game or anything. The Lakers aren't going to lead the league in block shots next season, the way the roster is currently constructed, and they did last season. But Kaycock can do some good things for you on the boards. His skill set is a little bit duplicated already by Montrezl Harrell, but he's still a guy who can step in and help. Now he is on a 2-way contract, so there's some limits as far as how much you can use him. But I think he's an interesting one to keep an eye on. And the guy that I really like, that I am super excited about, Taylor Horton Tucker. I'll tell you, I was excited about THT coming out of the bubble. I thought he looked pretty good there. Pretty clear that he's very young. He just turned 20 years old. His games needed refinement. But I talked to Jared Dudley a few weeks ago, and Dudley said Taylor Horton Tucker was dominating people in their practices in the bubble. And that caught my attention. I went, wow, okay, so he's on a veteran team. And the word being used is dominant in practices. And I'm trying to temper my expectations here. But Dudley said, no, I'm expecting this kid to play 15 to 20 minutes a night because he's going to earn that kind of role. And then 2 days ago, Frank Vogel was raving, or maybe it was yesterday, was raving about THT and what he's done. He said he's kicking everyone's butts in training camp, and he's so impressed with him. I think the Lakers could have something really good here. And we could, a lot of people write him off. He could be a big part of the rotation this next season, and I'd be really excited if they could have a young talent like that coming up.
Yeah, Horton Tucker. There's glimpses of it in the playoff game versus Houston. Came in, shot at mid range, played that defense. If Frank Vogel just says, "All right, Horton Tucker, go out there, play your game, you'll be all right." He's very talented. He could play the wing, he could play that defense, and he's gonna thrive under LeBron, AD. So I'm really excited for him, and also excited for Devontae Kaycock too. Love his game, his energy. He's like a mini version of Dwight with the intensity on both ends of the floor. And Lakers tried it. Lakers tried it, man. Why couldn't the Lakers get Deng off the books?
So the Luol Deng contract, it would be really nice, obviously, if they had been able to remove that $5 million cap hit off the books for this coming season. And then next season, that's right, it's still on the books for another season. They did waive and stretch him, and that's why you're seeing this get continue to stick on their books. But the reason why is because the Lakers tried to argue that he suffered a career-ending injury, and that was why he should be removed. And something actually was successfully done with Timofey Mozgov and the Orlando Magic. They successfully argued that he had suffered a career-ending injury and got his salary off their books. So the Lakers said, well, let's give this a shot. The challenge, though, was that Deng later went to the Timberwolves and played for them. He didn't play a lot, but he played for them. And so that sort of negates the argument that he had suffered a career-ending injury, because clearly his career did not end. It was still worth a shot, but the NBA ultimately ruled against him. So that money is on the books for this year, and then will be on the books for next year as well, and then it falls off.
Hey, we got a Laker fan in the comments. Clipper Darrow, what's up, man? Thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming on, man. We got Jim Buss. Yeah, Jim Buss. That was the year that we were struggled, Mozgov contract, but at least we got rid of Mozgov. But with that contract, we can't even trade it and attach it to other players. If we trade, like, let's say, hypothetically, we trade Kuzma, we can't take that contract of Deng and trade it with somebody else. So Deng's contract just has to go through, and just once it expires, it expires. That's crazy. Who would have thought that?
It's dead cap, and that was the decision the Lakers made when they waived him, and then they stretched that salary out in order to create more cap space. That's the downside, is you're going to be dealing with that salary for a longer period of time, although you don't have to deal with the massive cap hit of waiving the player in under just the normal length of their contract. So it's a good tool to use, but again, you do kind of feel the sting for a bit longer.
Yeah, man, it's all good, but I trust Rob Pelinka in this front office. They're going to work their magic. They tried, but they're going to do it again. And let's get into some NBA stuff. Who, for you, in your opinion, who is the toughest challenge for the Lakers coming into the new season?
Well, I mean, if Clipper Darrell's commenting, I don't think we can say the Clippers, right? No, but in all seriousness, I do think the Clippers are going to be a very solid opponent once again. They were very good. I mean, for much of the season, people were pointing to the Clippers and saying that's the favorite to win the NBA championship. I think if they can get their heads on right, they can get the chemistry fixed. Maybe Ty Lue can help with that. If they can do that, they're going to be tough. Serge Ibaka is a nice fit for them, of course. they still have some very, very strong pieces. Nicholas Batum is a guy that they added as well, that can do some things on the wing. So they're going to be a tough out. I think they're probably still going to be the number one competitor in the Western Conference. And then out in the East, you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, the pieces they've added with Drew Holiday coming in. They certainly didn't get any weaker. And then you've got a couple of teams that are going to be on the rise there. You know, the Boston Celtics, as they get older, as those guys mature with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you got to imagine they're going to be a handful as well. So there's some strong teams this season. It's going to be a dogfight, but it's going to be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, but the Clippers, I still don't trust them because when they had Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, CP3, all those guys, they got hyped up. For me, in my personal opinion, they just don't know how to. I know they got winning culture, winning players there, but they can never come together when it matters the most. Paul George stinking up the joint. Game 7, Kawhi Leonard, he should be held accountable for that. You know, and I tell Clipper Darrell he needs to be held accountable. You know, I'm tired of the Clippers, man. I'm just tired of them. They're always, they're trying to get one of these, but they ain't, man. But overall, I got Clippers being competitive. I even got Denver, Utah. Even Golden State's gonna be a tough battle. Try to win another championship. It's gonna be tough. 2009 was tough to win the championship. 2010, back to back. Anytime you try to win a back to back, it's gonna be tough. But I have all the faith in the world and confidence in my Lakers. And in my personal opinion, I would not be surprised if LeBron James sits out most of the games this season. So, do you think the Lakers should load management LeBron this season?
I think they will to some degree. And Frank Vogel and LeBron James have both kind of softened their stance on this. If you pay attention to their interviews they've done recently, just saying that they're going to be smart about it. Frank Vogel, his DNA, though, is if a player's healthy, he wants to play them because he wants that chemistry building and he wants the players on the floor to go through struggles together, to go through it during the regular season. So when you get to the playoffs, you've been in the foxhole with these guys for multiple games for the entire season, and you've dealt with adversity, and then when you find it in the playoffs, you're better equipped to deal with it. That's Frank Vogel's methodology. I do think that because you're seeing one, a quick turnaround, and two, a condensed game schedule, that there's going to be some times though where you have to play it smart, and that might mean resting LeBron James. The NBA did just update their policy, though. They've reiterated do not rest guys on nationally televised games, and the Lakers have more nationally televised games than anybody else. But I still think they're going to find ways to try to make sure LeBron is healthy. He only missed 4 games last year. I would be surprised if he doesn't miss more than that this year because they're going to have to do a few things just to make sure that he stays as healthy as possible for the playoffs.
Yeah, 100% agree. About that, the new policy, like let's say if it's Lakers, Brooklyn Nets, AD sits out, they get fined, but they won't be tripping if it's less teams like the Kings and they sit out against the Kings. So I kind of understand that. But if you're not feeling good, if you're injured, sit out. They may have to Lakers might have to take a couple fines this season. And I'm okay with that. If LeBron's, to get LeBron healthy, because he only touched the basketball I think twice after they won the championship. So LeBron said he was sore after his second practice. Yep. So I'm excited to see what LeBron's going to do in his 18th season. We got a lot of pressures on us to win one of these. We're getting doubted again. Not surprising, and we're going to win it again, in my opinion. But real quick, what are the odds, in your opinion, Kuzma's on this team leading into the trade deadline?
I think heading into the trade deadline, he probably is still on the team. I think they've got a role in mind for him. Rob Pelinka talked about him being more of that wing defender. It sounds like we're going to see more small forward from Kyle Kuzma. So I think that he'll still be around, but I do kind of wonder if there's a breaking point. He's not – the minutes aren't here. The shots aren't here for him to really put up the numbers he needs to get his next big contract. So I wonder if something does kind of break at some point, and Kuzma says, look, I kind of need to go somewhere else. I need to be the first or second guy on a team that's not quite as good, and that's going to give me an opportunity to really shine. It feels like an awkward fit right now. I would love to see Kyle Kuzma stick around. I still believe in his skill set, but I don't know. It feels like it's going to be tough given what he needs to do to get a new contract for next offseason and what the Lakers need him to do. Yeah,
me too, man. I expect him to stay here, but if he does get traded, I feel like he'll have that like D'Angelo Russell type of improvement. You know how when D'Angelo Russell got traded to Brooklyn, he shined and all that. I feel like Kuzma's going to do that. I feel like Kuzma just needs to have an opportunity to start, because I was watching highlights earlier today. Kuzma was balling out when he was starting with the Lonzos, the Brandon Ingrams, the Jordan Clarkson. He was balling out. He was fitting really good under Luke Walton's system. So I wouldn't be surprised if we trade him, but I feel like he should get his starting role. Let's just see Frank Vogel start Kuzma and see what happens. You know what I mean?
I mean, if there's a spot for him, then I'm sure Frank Vogel would have no problem with that. The issue is Kuzma is what? He's probably a 3 or a 4. That's LeBron is your 3 and Anthony Davis is your 4. He's not starting over either of those guys. So if you want to go with a supersized lineup and run him at the 2, maybe if you feel like you can get away with that, but that's not going to work in every single matchup. So that is just inherently the challenge is your 2 best players play the 2 spots that Kyle Kuzma can play. So that's a difficult challenge to overcome.
Yeah, it is, but I feel like Kuzma's going to shine this season. He's hearing the hate. He's literally hearing everything that fans are saying about him. He made that Puma commercial, so it's going to see what he's going to do. You know what I mean? And I want Kuzma to play good this season, man, because he's a great talent, He's great talent. So, let me see here. We got some. Let me see. Oh, we got a question from Out of Bounds Sports Podcast. They are finding players if they're healthy and sit, I heard.
Yeah, so that's an important distinction to make. The NBA is not saying we want people to play hurt. That's not, and they're not saying if you're sick, they're not saying don't go play while you're sick. No, they don't want that 100%, and that's why you may see some teams that say, oh, he's got back spasms or oh, he's got a sore shoulder or something. See some stuff pop up on the injury report that might be a little bit questionable, right? When players need a little bit of rest, but they're not going to find a team for playing a guy that is legitimately injured or not playing a guy that's legitimately injured. What they're talking about is a team just saying, okay, well, we're going to rest this guy and we're going to choose to rest him on a big nationally televised game, Lakers versus Bucks. Thursday night on TNT, and the Lakers say, "Oh well, LeBron's not playing." The NBA doesn't want that. They lost enough money with COVID last season. They can't have stars sitting out in the marquee matchups. The ratings will plummet. So that's what they're trying to make sure. They're saying, "Look, if you're going to rest a guy, do it on a Wednesday night when they're playing the Sacramento Kings. Don't do it for the big marquee matchup on national TV."
Yeah, I 100% agree, but why? I understand, but if LeBron's aching and injured, and let's say Bucks and Lakers, he's gonna have to sit out. He's not. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's gonna be
if he's hurt, he's sitting. And that's fine.
And same here. And how do you think the travel this year is gonna be due to the new COVID thing around the world? So how do you think the travel is gonna be this year for the Lakers?
In some ways, it's better, and I kind of like it. So if you've looked at the schedule. What they've done is they've made it so that, let's say San Antonio, for example, if you're going to go to San Antonio, what you would do in previous years is you would go to San Antonio, you would travel there in November, and then you would travel there again in, say, February, right? That might be how the schedule breaks down. And that was so, hey, if a player is out a particular week or whatever, this guy sprains his ankle, then the fans have a chance to see them the next time they come to town. But now what they're doing because of COVID, they want to try to limit the travel as much as possible. So now it's, okay, we're going to take one trip to San Antonio. You're going to play the Spurs twice while you're there. And then you're done. And then you don't have to go back. And so I think that actually helps out quite a bit. It's something that I wouldn't mind seeing carry over. I understood the argument why you would have it the original way. But the more and more we look into it, the more and more the science tells us that the excessive travel, that the lack of quality and quantity of sleep that traveling creates is really detrimental, and that it creates a much more likely environment for catastrophic injury. And so I think if this were something for the NBA to adopt permanently, it could be a good thing for the league, for the players, for their health moving forward. So I think the travel is going to be a little bit easier this season in that regard, and I think that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing, man. And we got couple questions. The Lakers played well by packing the roster so LeBron AD. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that question right there. Take the load off of him. So.
And that's the appeal of adding, say, a Dennis Schroeder, which is a skill set the Lakers didn't have as far as having somebody else that can get into the paint. That was only on LeBron. That was his burden to bear, was to get into the paint and collapse the defense. Now you've got Schroeder who can do those things as well. And so I think that by adding a player like that, you are lightening the load on him and probably increasing his longevity. So they have gone out of their way to add pieces that are not only going to help LeBron and Anthony Davis win, but help them stay healthy.
Yeah, 100%, man. But how do you in your opinion, do you think Dennis Schroeder is going to start, or do you think he's going to come off the bench?
I think he does start. Either way, he's getting a lot of minutes. Frank Vogel has told us that much already. Either way, he's getting a lot of minutes, whether he starts or comes off the bench. he wants the prestige of starting, right? He's going into a contract year, and he doesn't want to go into a contract year as a bench player. He doesn't want to be seen as a bench player. And regardless of, we can argue, well, there's been tons of guys who have been the sixth man who still have tons of value, get good contracts. The bottom line is it still matters to NBA teams that they start. From the Lakers' perspective, I really think they need him with the bench unit, though. You need that guy that can create offense when LeBron is out, and that's clearly Dennis Schroeder. So what I anticipate happening is something where Schroeder starts, maybe plays a short stint, and then you see him come back on when LeBron goes out, and so he can rack up minutes. And I think really the bench unit with Schroeder in it, that's going to be his opportunity to really put up a lot of counting stats and for his usage rate to go way up. Because he's not going to get the opportunities when LeBron's on the floor, when AD's on the floor. So the best case scenario for Schroeder is that he starts, but he gets a ton of minutes with the bench, because that's going to allow him to, one, have that prestige of being a starter, and two, still put up the big counting stats that he's going to want to have heading into free agency next offseason. So that's the way I see things playing out right now.
Yeah, me too, man. So I would try lineup of Dennis Schroeder, Kuzma at shooting guard, LeBron small forward, power forward, Montrezl Harrell, and AD at center, just to see that lineup. Just see, Frank Vogel can implement a bunch of starting lineups during his preseason. It's going to be a crazy, crazy season for the Lakers, man. I'm excited. And real quick, let me see here. Okay, real quick. Lakers re-sign Anthony Davis, 5 years, $195 million. LeBron re-signs 2 years extension. So, when you saw LeBron re-signing for the 2-year extension, because there's reports about AD taking a 1+1 for Giannis, and once LeBron signed that 2-year extension, I knew that we were out of the running for Giannis. So, tell us what you think.
Yeah, I mean, they essentially are in terms of salary cap space. They never had a max contract available, but you could argue, well, they could have gotten kind of close and things like that. There is still a sign and trade option that's available here where they could work something out there. So that's still a possibility, but again, pretty unlikely right now. But that being said, you've got LeBron locked up. You've got Anthony Davis locked up. The Anthony Davis thing we expected. We didn't expect 5 years, but we expected him to stick with the Lakers. The LeBron extension was the surprise. That caught everybody off guard. That came out of the blue. But the good thing for the Lakers is now they have certainty. Now moving forward, you are building your team around LeBron James and Anthony Davis, which is a hell of a place to start from. So this gives them that kind of certainty to construct the roster from here on out. And that's a real luxury to have. So while we can say, yes, maybe they, would have been nice if they could have chased a third star next summer or next offseason, I should say. But I still think what they got in terms of the certainty now of building out their roster around these two guys is really valuable.
Yeah, 100%, man. And once LeBron retires, we're building around AD, because I really personally thought AD was going to sign 1+1, and then Giannis was going to come and we're going to build a big 3. But I'll take AD for 5 more years and LeBron for 2 more years. You know what I mean? So, in your opinion, what would it take for LeBron James to be the greatest Laker of all time?
He can't. I mean, that's just my honest opinion. I don't think there's anything he can do to become the greatest Laker of all time, because that is Kobe, and he's not. He's not passing Kobe. And I grew up as a Magic Johnson fan, right? And Kobe Kobe's the greatest Laker ever. Kobe has 2 decades, 20 years with the Lakers. Given the amount of time LeBron has left, I don't see anything he can do. I mean, you could say, well, if he won, MVPs, if he wins championships from here on out, all of that, sure. But Kobe Bryant, the 2 decades, it's not going. I don't think it's going to change that. In my mind, maybe my opinion on that would change if LeBron goes on this just insane tear, passes the scoring record, passes Kareem's scoring record, plays till he's 40 or whatever. Maybe that's a discussion we can have. But just within the realm of reality, what we're seeing right now, I'm going to say I don't see him dethroning Kobe as the greatest Laker ever.
No, LeBron's not. Kobe Bryant's the greatest Laker of all time, and Kobe will always be the greatest Laker of all time. I know that people say Magic. I know people say Kareem, but me, Bigbabyjonathan's opinion, Kobe Bryant. And speaking of Kobe, who do you think should speak at Kobe Bryant's Hall of Fame?
I mean, Rob Pelinka. I think for sure he should be one of the speakers there as his best friend, as his agent, as such a big part of the Lakers organization now. Shaquille O'Neal. I was at the memorial at Staples Center back in February, right before all the COVID stuff really started going crazy. And Michael Jordan's speech was incredible. He's another one that I would love to hear talk about Kobe again. Um, yeah, I mean those are the names that I'd be looking to hear from. I think one that we didn't hear from that day though that I would like to would be Powell. You know, Powell didn't give up and get up and give a speech. He was there, he was in attendance, but he didn't speak. So I'd love to hear Powell speak as well.
Yeah, me too. I would love to hear Powell speak, Vanessa Bryant, you know, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. So there's so many players and former players gonna be able to speak, but I feel like you gotta let Vanessa Bryant go first. You know, let her go first, let her speak, and then you go to the list down. You know, what I mean, it's gonna be very emotional that night. It's gonna be very emotional once again. You know, it's unfortunate. You know that Kobe's in the Hall of Fame, but he's not here to celebrate with Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett. It's unfortunate.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's a moment where I still, even just thinking about it now, the hairs on my arm are standing up right now. I'm getting goosebumps because I'm remembering the Vanessa Bryant speech. I mean, I was in at the time. The entire building was just in disbelief that she was the first speaker up at his memorial and that she spoke for so long and with so much power, given what she was going through. That was absolutely incredible and an unforgettable moment of just pure strength in the face of an absolutely devastating event.
Yeah, it was very devastating, sad, and you know, it's unfortunate that we don't get to see Kobe at his Hall of Fame, man. You know, it's unfortunate. You know, life is too short, man. So count your blessings, you know, and pray to God each and every day. And Trevor Lane, before you get up on your guilt, go ahead and tell him about your social media and tell him about your show that you have on YouTube.
Sure, yeah. So you guys can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, on Instagram at Trevor Lane NBA. I handle all the video content for Lakers Nation, which means I do videos every single day on the Lakers, just breaking down things, going over the news, all that kind of stuff. And we also do a live show right now. It's twice a week, and we go live Mondays and Thursday nights at 8 o'clock Pacific time. But once the games start up, it converts to a post-game show. And so we do a post-game show right after every single game. You guys can hop on and chat Lakers basketball directly with us. We take all of your questions and comments from YouTube, from Periscope, and from Facebook. And all you got to do is go onto the Lakers Nation accounts there, and you can follow along with us. Again, we go live as soon as the game ends, and that's going to be starting up this Friday with the first preseason game.
Yep. Trevor Lane, thank you for coming on, and thank you guys for listening to us. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody. Go Lakers.